Evolution is one of the main themes of Godzilla and the Monsterverse, but is it only seen in the G-Man? I mean this evolution trait. Now there are quite a few monsters or titans in the movies and the Monarch series, as well as the comics that have been seen to undergo changes which are different from their previous seen forms. But are they considered evolutionary changes, or is it just a predetermined growth and development stage following a preset life cycle? Here in this video we will dive deep and discuss this topic in detail and get to the bottom of it all. So let's get to it. Firstly, what is evolution in this context? It isn't those gradual set of changes that a species inherits over countless generations as a result of point mutations in their DNA, which brings about bodily changes that helps the creatures to procreate and survive better. Well, here in the Monsterverse, it isn't that. Rather, it diverts from the most scientific explanation into the most sci-fi popular definition of the criteria, which is a set of changes an individual or a specimen achieves as a result of external and internal factors. It's simply transformation, a metamorphosis or transmutation, but it's also more than just that. It is not yet defined in a life cycle, it is something unique and kind of subconsciously achieved as well. So with this defined in short, let's take a look at which titans fit the criteria. There are many different super species and titans in the Monsterverse. Titans like Scylla, Rodan, Methuselah, Behemoth, Tiamat, Nakika, etc., which were only seen in specific instances and they don't seem to change in appearance at all. We can't infer anything on these monsters since there is no evidence for any changes in them. All that the Monsterverse shows us is that they only have one type of form. Now this brings us to the first titan that we have seen changes on, aside from Godzilla that is, Titanus Kong. The question here is, does Kong evolve? We have seen him as he was in 1973 as a juvenile adolescent a bit more than 30 meters or 100 feet tall. We then saw him again in live action in GVK as a 337 feet tall titan, and now in GXK he will grow a longer beard, having a silverback fur and more muscle. But does that indicate evolution? Well, aside from the unimaginable change in size from 100 to 337 feet in 50 years, there is no trait that he has incorporated in him that would convince us that he has evolved. In short, he only went through a simple growth cycle that any other primate would have, but it's just magnified 100 times. So is there a titan that have changed drastically in shape and form? Well, there is one, and this is Titanus Mosura, or otherwise known as the Queen of the Monsters, Mothra. We know she comes from an egg, and this egg would lay dormant for an unspecified amount of time. Then when it's time, a larva will come out, and over the course of a few days, if the need arises, the larva will cocoon itself and change into an imago form which has wings, gigantic wings and godly powers. Is this evolution? It sure seems like it, right? But no. Mothra here is simply going through a set of predetermined life cycle phases to grow and mold into an adult form, and this process is repeated over all of her different generations. Okay, so what about the Jinshin Musis? Do these Mutos evolve at least? It's harder to say with this one though. The Mutos have a crazy life cycle. First they grow as spores in a titan's body, specifically a Godzill's body, then emerges in their larval form to find another radiation-rich source to mature into a sexual reproductive phase, that is the male Muto and the female Mutos. They can then multiply in number with eggs that seem to produce miniaturized fem and hoc Mutos. Then as they thin out in number, as they grow in population first, and then cause a mass extinction and then thin out in number, the most hardy females will develop into a queen, and then the last one that survives all of those will become a prime, a Muto prime. Yet, even here, there is a predetermined life cycle path that cannot be broken. They merely change as they mature along the way, with powers that they develop or evolve as they go through the stages. So no, Mutos don't really evolve, they just go through a set of predetermined phases. Seems bleak, right? Are there any other titan that changes? Well, Amhuluk is different. He is only a brain with a telekinetic nervous system, so his body changes constantly as the nervous system accumulates woody material. But that's barely an evolution, it's simply hoarding. What about the lesser superspecies then? The skull crawlers and the skull devil, right? Well, even with these creatures here, the only changes we see is size. And the same can be inferred through the mother longlegs, the genitor swarm, and the other Skull Island species. So at the end of it all, we only have one monster or a titan that can actually change as he wants to, the only creature that develops new abilities to counter his enemies, to make sure he overcomes a similar life-threatening situation if it ever arises again, ever adapting and ever growing, and this is Godzilla, the Titanus Gojira species. So why does only Godzilla evolve? In a previous video, we explained the different evolution forms that he has and why he changes constantly in detail. In it, we explained that Godzilla, if faced with a situation that is life-threatening, or he fights an enemy that is physically superior and somehow he survives, he would find a place to rest, to heal and absorb radiation, and then evolve different abilities and features that would allow him to be immune to such a similar threat if it ever arises again. And he needs a certain type of radiation for this, either geothermal radiation, nuclear bombs, Mothra's life essence, or for this new GXK Pinkzilla form, he would absorb a unique pink hollow earth radiation that would make him change drastically from Bluezilla to Pinkzilla. So anyway, here are the 6 forms that Godzilla has already had in the Monsterverse, at least the ones we have seen. First, it is the 300 feet tall 1954 form. Second is the OG 2014 form, which is 355 feet. Thirdly, the King of the Monsters, the changed form, which has grown to 393 feet or 120 meters in height. The fourth form here is a Mothra-assisted burning Godzilla, albeit it was a temporary change. The fifth form is the GVK1 that has more or less the same with the KOTM form, but this one has more energy output, and it seems like there was atomic energy that's seeping out of every place in his body. The last form, the sixth form here, is the one that will be seen in GXK, the Pinkzilla form, which has crystal dorsal plates, pink radiation glow, spikes on the tail, and an overall more athletic physique. Now, is there a 7th or an 8th form? Well, the future Monsterverse flicks will reveal new forms as the franchise continues, mainly to sell new toys. But there are one or two things that we can tell you that is as yet theoretical, but it's possible. Godzilla's first ever pre-Titan form could also be taken into consideration, but we haven't seen it yet. This would be the Godzillasaurus of the Monsterverse that maybe a future movie or a series will reveal to us, something that may look like Dirk of GVK. And as we know, Titanus Dirk is a cousin species of the Gojillas. Then lastly, there is also the Mega Gojira form that one of the deceased Hollow Earth Gojillas achieved, the one that was seen as a skeleton in the throne room of the Kongs. So that is another form that we haven't seen, but it is in the continuity. So all in all, Godzilla in the Monsterverse could have potentially 8 different forms in total, or even more as time passes. So that's about it. If you like this video, then watch this other one as well, and do check out our channel as we might have things that you haven't seen before. Like, subscribe, and we'll see you in the next video. Take care, fam.